and welcome back. So I've tentatively titled this playlist Yoga in the Woods, but I realized I didn't actually show you any evidence of being in the woods last time. So here you go.
Yay!
And as you can see here, we have today a special guest with us. I have Ava in the background. She's home from daycare today, so I thought what better activity to do than film a yoga class. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Ava, do you want to come say hi? She's a little busy. In today's class, we're going to be focusing on the hips. And when you usually think of hips in yoga classes, people often think about pigeon pose. I'll let you in on a little secret. Unless it's a really well-propped, well-supported shape, I've never really been a huge fan. So this is going to be kind of a hips class beyond pigeon pose. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about the hips. We're going to be moving through some shapes, and then we're going to be ending with some yin, some restorative shapes that really kind of target some of those muscles that we think of as the hip area muscles. For today's class, what you need prop-wise is a mat. You'll want a bolster or a cushion, 2 blocks, and a strap. And all of those things are just suggestions. So if you don't have any of those things at home, that's okay. Get creative. We'll think of some alternative. And I'm not sure if I mentioned it in the last class, but I always make a playlist to go with the classes that I teach. Something beyond just the background noise of Ava ringing the bells. I really enjoy practicing with music, especially these kind of vibey playlists that I make. So I hope you'll enjoy them too. So I'll drop the playlist for today into the chat, and you can press play now. And with that, we'll get started. So in my last video, I talked a lot about Sun Salutations and I broke down how to do them. So if you want a quick guide to how to, go back to that video and I'll link to it in the description. Otherwise, I'll just roll through them really quickly. And you'll see that I'm using a mudra in these Sun Salutations. It's called Pushpaputa Mudra, and that means handful of flowers. And this energetic space of the hips is the place we associate with beauty, with all the floweriness, with all the comfort. So this is a good mudra to kind of bring that energy in. So you'll see me tossing these handful of flowers as we do these Sun Salutations. All right, let's start. Okay, so you can join me up at the top of the mat again. And before we move into some more shapes, into some more flow, I'm just going to break down something about the hips. So when we stand in Tadasana in mountain pose, we want to find a neutral orientation of the hips. And that means not sticking the bum out behind you or tucking the tail under. So this would be called anterior tilts. This would be called posterior tilts. And neutral is just something in between that. So if you imagine your pelvis as a bowl of ice cream, of soup, of whatever you want in that bowl, you just want to imagine that being still and not spilling either forward or backward. So you want to find that when you're in your mountain pose. And you'll also find that sense of neutral hips in a lot of the postures we find in yoga. Another thing that can happen with the hips is they either tilt up, hike up to one side or the other. That can be caused just by standing around. It can also be caused by something I do a lot, which is carrying a toddler. So these shapes that we take day to day can just kind of become ingrained in the body, and they can show up in the yoga mat. So as you're standing in Tadasana, find that sense of neutral in your hips. And one more thing I want to break down before we get into this flow. There are 2 kinds of orientations that we talk about in yoga poses in regards to the hips. One is open hips and the other is closed hips. So a posture like Warrior 2, the hips are open because the legs are externally rotated and there's this sense of opening, of spilling out in the pelvis. In a shape like Warrior 1, where the hips you think of as squared forward. Now, maybe Warrior 1 isn't actually the best example because we have this classic cue of squaring the hips forward, but that doesn't always happen. So let's actually take something like a revolved triangle pose. Here the hips are clearly closed because you're rotating the hips. So if you imagine headlights on your hips, they're tilted this way and it crosses this leg. There's almost just this hint of internal rotation in the legs. So you can see the difference here again. Closed hips here versus open hips here. And when we move through a flow, we really want open hips as we're moving through flowing postures, because closed hips, if you add in some closed hip postures into a flow, not only does it kind of slow you down, it also kind of, for some people, it gives them a sense of kind of jamming up the hip socket. Depends on your own body. But again, the thing that we want to think about in flowing is open hips so that we can move with grace, so that we can move with ease. So we'll move through an open hip flow. You can meet me in downward facing dog. Come there any way you choose. I'll just toss my handful of flowers up, fold down, and then roll through a vinyasa. Okay. So the first posture we'll come into is warrior two. So we'll start on the left side. So you can step your left foot forward. You want it to be about where your left thumb is, and then you'll spin your right heel down. And then lift the arms up. And again, you want to find this open hip orientation. So the hips come towards square with the long edge of your mat. And then from the hips, lift up through both sides of the waist and let your arms come out to a T. And you can take your gaze over your left middle finger. And then as you inhale, flip your front palm, straighten your front leg, and lean your upper body back, coming into a reverse triangle. Good, and then as you exhale, we'll take a side angle pose. So bring your left forearm to your thigh, and then reach your right arm over your head. So taking a nice side body stretch through the right side. Inhale, lean back into your reverse triangle. And exhale, come back forward into your side angle pose. Good. Inhale, lean back, reverse your triangle. Exhale into side angle. Just do that 2 more times. Inhaling back. Exhaling forward. Inhaling back. And then exhaling forward. Good. Inhale back 1 more time. And then as you exhale, you'll come through a bent knee, and then you'll make your way back into downward facing dog. Any way you choose. So you could add in a vinyasa on the way, or you could just step your way back. So again, all those shapes had open hips. So that allows us to kind of move a little more to flow. Okay, let's try it on the second side. So right foot steps forward, spin your left heel down, and then cartwheel the arms up into a T shape. So finding your warrior two. So again, hips squared towards the long edge of your mat. Gaze over your front middle finger, and then flip that palm. Lean back, straighten through the front leg, coming into your reverse triangle. Good. Exhale back into your side angle. And a couple more times. So just flowing on your own, leaning back into your reverse triangle, and then forward into your side angle. Inhaling back. Exhaling forward. Inhaling back. Exhaling forward. Inhaling back. And then as you exhale through a bent knee, come through your vinyasa. We'll meet back in downward facing dog. So this next shape, this next part of the flow, we'll just make sure that you have blocks towards the front of your mat. There's going to be an option to take an Ardha Chandrasana or a half moon, another open hip shape, surprise, surprise. But you want a block to be set up at the top of your mat just in case you need it there. So we'll build onto that flow. So step your left foot forward, cartwheel the arms up, come into your warrior two, and then just one pulse this time. So as you inhale, straighten your front leg, lean back into your reverse triangle. Exhale into side angle. Inhale into your reverse triangle. Exhale through a bent knee into your half moon. So you'll reach for that block, slide it forward into the outside of your front foot. Your right hand can be on your hip to start, and then shift your weight into your left foot. Lift your right foot up. And then if you feel stable here, you can reach your right arm up. Again, creating that nice openness in the hips. Reaching, reaching, reaching. Take a breath in. And as you exhale, you'll bend your front knee and step back into warrior two. Good. We'll inhale into a peaceful warrior, so keep the front knee bent this time as you lean your upper body back. And then as you exhale, hands to the mat, move your way back into downward facing dog. To your second side, step your right foot to the front of the mat, spin your left heel down, cartwheel the arms up, warrior two. Straighten the front leg, lean back into your reverse triangle, and then exhale into a side angle pose. Inhale, lean back into your reverse triangle. Exhale through a bent knee into your half moon. So slide your block forward, hand to the hip if you want, and then the arms can expand once you feel stable. Rotate the chest, rotate the hips open, and then find stability through the foot that's grounded. One more breath in. As you exhale, step it back into your warrior two. Good, peaceful warrior. As you breathe in, lean your upper body back, keeping that front knee bent. And then as you exhale, cartwheel the hands down. Meet me back in downward facing dog. And we've set ourselves up for a nice flow here. So since we are using all open hip postures, we can move through those that little flow with what we do say in Vinyasa, which is 1 breath per movement. If there are closed hips, sometimes that can kind of stop us from moving so quickly. And the goal of yoga is never to move fast, but sometimes it's nice to kind of create a flow, to kind of move some energy around. And so that's the whole purpose of moving with these open hip postures. So if at any point you want to rest, come into child's pose or just take a seat. But we'll flow through this series 2 more times, and it'll be the same postures. So left foot forward first, come into your warrior two as you inhale. Settle as you exhale. Inhale to reverse triangle, straighten the front leg. Exhale into side angle. Inhale, reverse your triangle. Exhale into half moon. Good, take an inhale here, let the arms expand. As you exhale, step back into warrior two. Inhale into peaceful warrior. Exhale through your vinyasa. We'll meet in downward facing dog. 1 breath per movement if that feels good in your body. Second side, step the right foot forward. Lift into your warrior two. As you inhale, straighten the front leg, lean back into peaceful warrior. As you exhale, find your side angle. Inhale, lean back, peaceful warrior. Exhale, Ardha Chandrasana, half moon pose. Inhale back into your warrior two. Steady yourself. Good, exhale here. Inhale, lean back into peaceful warrior. Exhale, move your way back into downward facing dog. Then your choice here, either rest or we'll take it 1 more time on both sides. Step the left foot forward if you're moving. Lift into your warrior two. Settle as you exhale. Inhale, lean back into your reverse triangle. Exhale into your side angle pose. Inhale, lean back, reverse the triangle. Exhale through a bent knee into half moon pose. Inhale, expand through the heart, through the hips. Exhale, step all the way back into warrior two. Inhale, peaceful warrior. Exhale your way back into downward facing dog. Last side like that. Step your right foot forward. Inhale into your warrior two. Settle as you exhale. Inhale, reverse your triangle, lift and lengthen. Exhale into your side angle pose. Inhale, reverse your triangle. Exhale, forward into your half moon, reaching for your block. Inhale, lengthen through the heart and through the hips. And then as you exhale, step all the way back into your warrior two. Inhale, peaceful warrior. Exhale, your flow back into downward facing dog. And then take a rest here in child's pose, either with the knees together or knees could be apart. You can soften your head forward onto the mat. If it doesn't reach, you can take a block underneath your forehead. Okay, so we're just going to wind things down from here. So you can start to make your way out of child's pose. Just come into a comfortable seat so you can see this next posture that I'm going to set up. So I promised some variations on pigeon pose, and like I said, pigeon pose can be great. A lot of people really love pigeon pose, but I've just never been a huge fan unless there are a lot of props, and it's kind of more of a restorative pigeon shape. What I prefer to do is what in yin we call a deer pose. It's kind of a similar hip stretch. It kind of gets towards similar areas, but you don't really even need any props for this variation unless you want them. But you'll start with I like to start with the left side first. The left is kind of what we consider the more feminine side in yoga, and especially with kind of a hip focused class, it's kind of nice energy to bring in. So we'll start with the left side, and you'll just take your left shin forward as if you're going to come into pigeon pose, but you'll stay grounded on the left hip. And you'll move into kind of a 90-degree angle with the front shin and with the front thigh. It doesn't have to be perfect, so it doesn't have to be, in yin, we never say that shapes have to look a certain way. It's more about the sensation inside. So you'll come roughly into a 90-degree angle, and then this back knee is pointing back towards the back corner of the mat. If that's not comfortable, you can have it more here, but that's a little less of a stretch. But you can kind of choose how far back you want this thigh to be. The farther back you point it, kind of the deeper the stretch becomes. So you can kind of play around with what feels best in your body. And for a lot of people, this might be enough. So you can stay right here, or for a little deeper of a stretch, you can walk yourself forward over the front shin. The more squared your chest is over this front shin, again, kind of the deeper of a stretch it's going to be. So come into your variation of the shape, and yin shapes we typically hold for about 3 to 5 minutes, and we've already been here for at least a minute, so we'll just be here for another minute or so. But that being said, because we're in this shape a little bit longer of a period, you definitely don't want to overstretch, you don't want to overdo it. So you want to find, I like to think of doing yin shapes almost like doing restorative, in that the stretch should not be intense. It should be well supported, because you don't want to overstretch in these shapes. So come into your version of this shape that feels sustainable, that feels supportive, and then just notice where in your body you can invite some softness. Maybe the chin drawing down to the chest, and then with some softness, invite in some breath. And just imagine the breath coming straight down into the hips. And you'll just slowly start to roll yourself up. And then you might take a gentle windshield wiper of the shins from side to side, or you might just sit in stillness for a minute if that's what your body needs. But just take a minute here to Take whatever feels like you're craving. And we'll set up for this shape on the second side. So it's the right hip now that grounds, and you create that 90-degree or so angle with the front thigh, with the front shin. Left knee points towards the back corner of the mat, and then you think about moving the chest towards square over the front shin. It doesn't have to be perfect, but let yourself soften here. So again, you might be upright, you might start to walk the hands forward, maybe the forearms come down, and again, chin can drop down to the chest, and then just invite in some breath. Invite in a sense of quiet. And again, anytime you need to move, anytime you need to shift, you can do so. But notice if the shifting is coming from an actual sense of urgency in the body. If there's pain, please be my guest and move in any way that you choose to. But if it's just a sense of restlessness, notice if you can instead see if you can stay. And let yourself become grounded here. And you'll slowly start to unwind, just lifting the upper body back upright, bringing the shins, the thighs, the legs into symmetry, or maybe just inviting a little gentle shifting of the shins from side to side, maybe a little movement through the feet, through the ankles. And before coming into our final resting shape, we'll come into one more symmetrical shape called Baddha or bound angle pose. And so we want to find neutrality in the pelvis here. And a lot of times what happens when we are seated in Baddha with the soles of the feet touching, knees out wide, is that the pelvis comes into a posterior tilt, and we kind of tend to sag. The spines kind of tend to sag backwards. And you'll notice if you're in this posterior tilt, if you're kind of leaning back on your tailbone, you're really not in good alignment of the spine. The normal curve of the spine that you want to find in upright postures just really isn't there. So what you want to think about is rolling forward on the sits bones so that you can find a straight upright spine. Now, if that isn't possible in your body, if you still feel like you're kind of hanging back, then what you want is a little bit of cushioning underneath the sits bones. So maybe it's a rolled up blanket, maybe it's a block, maybe it's a bolster, but you want to find a little bit of height so that you can have neutrality in the pelvis so that you can have an upright spine. So whatever height you're taking, ground it underneath your sits bones, and then find the bowl of your pelvis. Remember that ice cream that you were holding in your pelvis, and just make sure it's not spilling. And then from this upright pelvis, this upright bowl, you can then start to walk your hands forward and roll your spine forward. So the pelvis is still in neutral here. Chin can soften down into your chest, and we won't be here for too long, but just notice any sensation in the hips. Good, and then roll yourself back upright into a straight spine, and we'll set up for our final resting shape. So if you need to switch the shins out to make any fidgets in the legs, you can do so, because our final resting shape is going to be a restorative shape that brings the legs back into this kind of alignment. So any little fidgets that you need to take before coming back into this alignment, you can do so. We'll use a strap here, and we'll use a bolster, and we'll use 2 blocks. But again, you can get creative with which props you use. So with the strap, you're going to make a really big loop, and you're going to take it all the way over your body. And then once it's over your body, you're going to take it over your ankles. So this is just kind of giving yourself a container to lean back into, providing a little bit of support. And then, actually may have been easier to do this without the strap first, but if you can keep the strap on, then you can. You'll set up your bolster, and you'll set up 2 blocks underneath it. So 1 block is going to come to the medium height, 1 block is going to come to the lowest height, and you're just creating a ramp for this bolster to rest on. Then once you have that, get your strap situated again. So strap over the sacrum, the lowest boniest part of the spine, and then strap over the ankles. And then you'll just lean back. Coming into Supta Baddha Konasana, which is said to be kind of the queen of all restorative yoga poses. For even more support, if you have additional blocks, you can take those kind of at an angle underneath the backs of the knees to whatever height you might need. So that might be the highest, might be the medium height. And then that just provides a little shelf for the knees to rest on. So that's if you have extra blocks, but you could also use pillows or whatever else you might have around you. And then you really want to feel not like you're in a deep stretch here at all. You really shouldn't feel much of a stretch in the body. If you do, then that means you need to bring the knees in a little closer, or just prop yourself up a little more so that the shape becomes a little more sustainable. And we'll take our final rest here. So I'll let you rest here for a minute or 2, and then I'll let you know when to start moving, when to start shifting again. But for now, bring your attention to nothing at all. If thoughts come into the mind, that's okay. But just notice them, watch them, and see if you can let them go. Take a breath in. Soft sigh out the lips. Rest here in Shavasana. And you'll slowly start to make your way out of this shape by just drawing the knees together to touch. And then without engagement, without too much drama about it, just roll off to one side and lift yourself up to seated. Take some height underneath your seat, again finding that neutral pelvis shape. And then you can either be in a cross-legged seat, or if it feels better to be grounded on your knees, you can be there. But find that neutral pelvis. Lengthen through the spine, lengthen through the crown of the head. And you can find Pushpa Pura Mudra in your hands again. So inner edges of the palms touch. You're cupping your hands as if they're flowers right here in the center of them. Again, the flowers, the flowery element, that's all part of the energy of the hips. You can hold this close to your heart as if you're just breathing in and out the scent of those petals. And as you're here in this seated meditation, I'll read you a poem by Mary Oliver called Blue Iris. She says, "Now that I'm free to be myself, who am I? Can't fly, can't run, and see how slowly I walk. Well, I think I can read books. What's that you're doing? The green-headed fly shouts as it buzzes past. I close the book. Well, I can write down words like these, softly. What's that you're doing? Whispers the wind, pausing in a heap just outside the window. Give me a little time, I say back to its staring silver face. It doesn't happen all of a sudden, you know. Doesn't it? Says the wind, and breaks open, releasing distillation of blue iris. And my heart panics not to be as I long to be, empty, waiting, pure, speechless receptacle. With the mudra in your hands, just seal them into a prayer. Take it to the center of your heart. And bow. Say hi. Say hi, beautiful. She brought something for me that says, I like you a latte. I like you a latte. Okay, everyone, thanks so much for joining our class today. So please go ahead and like and subscribe, and we'll come back to you next time. Let me know if you have any requests. All right, say bye-bye. 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 Bye-bye.